In a historic and deeply symbolic moment for the Catholic Church, the election of Pope Leo XIV marked not only the continuation of apostolic succession but also the beginning of a new era. As the first American pope, Leo XIV represents a bridge between the traditional heart of Roman Catholicism and the expansive, diverse world it now embraces. His papacy is celebrated for its bold vision, digital fluency, inclusive tone, and doctrinal clarity. Yet behind the man in white stands a remarkable family story, a legacy of faith, struggle, service, and transformation that shaped the very soul of this historic pontiff. An American story rooted in immigrant struggles. Born Robert Francis Prevost, Pope Leo XIV is the son of devout Catholic parents from the Midwest, whose family heritage is a tapestry woven from immigrant resilience and deep-rooted Catholic identity. His ancestors, a blend of French-Canadian and Mexican-American lineage, came to the United States in the early 20th century seeking better opportunities and religious freedom. Settling in places like Chicago, Detroit, and South Texas, the Prevost and Hernandez families brought with them the traditions of Catholic piety, novenas, devotions to Mary, the importance of family, and hard work. Their Catholicism wasn't just cultural, it was a lifeline. Amidst economic hardship, social discrimination, and the pressures of American secularism, the family clung to their rosaries, their parish communities, and their hope in God. Meet the people who shaped him. 1. His father, Joseph Prevost, the quiet strength. Joseph was a humble electrician who volunteered on weekends at the local parish, repairing lights in the church and offering his services to elderly neighbors. Known as Joe the Fixer, he never sought praise but lived a quiet life of virtue. He instilled in young Robert the value of silent service, teaching that holiness often hides in the shadows of routine. He was also an avid reader of encyclicals and was deeply inspired by Pope John XI and Paul VI. Joseph's kitchen table lectures on Vatican II would unknowingly shape the worldview of a future pontiff. 2. His mother, Teresa Hernandez Prevost, the matriarch of mercy. Teresa was the true heartbeat of the family. A schoolteacher and active member of the Catholic Daughters of America, she passed down both the Spanish language and the fire of Marian devotion to her son. Her evenings were spent praying the rosary in Spanish and singing Ave Maria at family gatherings. She took Robert to daily Mass, taught him to kneel before the Blessed Sacrament, and encouraged him to always listen for the whisper of God. Her commitment to education, social justice, and Catholic tradition directly influenced her son's passion for Catholic social teaching. 3. His grandmother. Abuela Rosa, the keeper of faith. On his mother's side, Robert's grandmother, Rosa Maria, fled persecution in Mexico during the Cristero War. She arrived in America with nothing but her wedding ring and a small crucifix. Rosa's stories of the Cristero martyrs and her deep reverence for the Sacred Heart of Jesus would leave an indelible mark on Robert. He often recalls hearing her pray the rosary in the early morning hours, whispering the names of every grandchild. She taught him the value of suffering, perseverance, and sacred tradition. 4. His older brother, James Prevost, the silent rebel turned Catholic leader. While James initially rebelled against their traditional upbringing, he had a profound conversion in college after a pilgrimage to Lourdes. He went on to become a deacon and later a director of a Catholic shelter for the homeless. His journey of wrestling with faith, returning to the Church, and becoming a servant of the poor deeply impacted Pope Leo XIV'S approach to mercy and inclusion. Leo often says of James, "He taught me that grace works in silence and that God writes straight with crooked lines." The household that formed a pope. In the Prevost home, faith was not reserved for Sunday, it was lived out every day. The family prayed before meals, read scripture together, and celebrated feast days with special meals and decorations. They saw the liturgical calendar not as a church event but as a rhythm of life. As a boy, Robert Francis Prevost served as an altar boy, sang in the choir, and joined the local Catholic youth organization. His parents encouraged him to read Lives of the Saints, with a special love for Saint Oscar Romero, Saint Therese of Lisieux, and Blessed Miguel Pro. A calling nurtured in family, confirmed in service. Though he considered law and teaching, young Robert's vocation began to bloom in high school. With his family's blessing, he entered the Order of St. Augustine, eventually becoming a missionary in Peru, a place where his bilingual heritage and cultural fluency became spiritual assets. Even in Latin America, he remained closely tied to his family, writing letters to his mother every week, calling his grandmother on feast days, and relying on his brother's insights in navigating ministry challenges. Family roots, global reach. As Pope Leo XIV now guides over 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide, the values instilled in him by his family continue to shape his vision. Humility in leadership, from his father's quiet service. Marian devotion and Eucharistic reverence, from his mother and grandmother. Compassion for the marginalized, inspired by his brother's work with the poor. Embrace of multiculturalism and global dialogue, rooted in his bicultural upbringing. Pope Leo XIV'S teachings on inclusion, artificial intelligence, the digital church, and youth evangelization all reflect the legacy of a family that never saw the church as a building, but as a home, a place where Christ walks among his people. From humble roots to the chair of Peter. A symbol of Catholic universality. Pope Leo XIV's election is not just a personal milestone, it's a symbol of the Catholic Church's universal. His family background reflects the new face of Catholicism in the 21st century, global, multicultural, bilingual, and spiritually rich. The Church today is no longer centered just in Europe. It's alive in African villages, Latin American barrios, Asian megacities, and American suburbs. Pope Leo XIV's journey from a modest Midwestern household to St. Peter's Basilica echoes the lived reality of millions of believers who follow Christ in ordinary, yet extraordinary, ways. He has often said, "The Church is no longer an empire, it is a family." And every Catholic family, no matter how small, is part of the Gospel's unfolding story. The family as the first seminary. In his many homilies, Pope Leo XIV refers to his upbringing as his first seminary. Long before he studied theology or wore a cassock, it was in the home of Joseph and Teresa Prevost that he learned how to pray with intention, how to serve with joy, how to suffer with grace, how to discern the quiet voice of God in daily life. He has challenged Catholic parents to reclaim their role as spiritual mentors. Teach your children to know the saints, he says. Let your kitchen table become an altar of mercy and truth. Global family, global shepherd. The international composition of Pope Leo XIV's family allowed him to grow up sensitive to cultural differences and the richness of diverse expressions of faith. His Mexican, French-Canadian, and American heritage gave him a trilingual identity, Spanish, English, and French, which he now uses to communicate with Catholics worldwide without a translator. This cultural adaptability has made him immensely popular across continents. In Latin America, he's hailed as a son of the Americas. In Canada, he is welcomed as a brother. In the United States, he is celebrated as a native son. In Rome, he is respected as a shepherd who carries his people in his heart. Formation through struggles and suffering. The path to the papacy was not without pain. Pope Leo XIV lost his father while he was still in seminary. His mother battled cancer for years, yet never lost her faith. His brother struggled with addiction before his conversion. These trials were not obstacles but altars of transformation. In them, the future pope learned to weep with those who weep, to understand suffering not as a curse, but as a doorway to grace. He often says, "I was not shaped by perfection, but by pain redeemed by prayer." The legacy he carries. Every time Pope Leo XIV blesses a child, meets a refugee, celebrates Mass, or preaches to the faithful, he carries his family's legacy within him. The sound of his grandmother's whispered rosary lives in the cadence of his preaching. The memory of his mother's Eucharistic adoration echoes in his bold defense of the real presence. The virtue of his father's work ethic pulses through his reforms of Vatican administration. He is, in many ways, not just the heir to Peter, but the son of a family who believed that Christ could change the world, one child, one home, one prayer at a time. Call to Catholic families worldwide. Pope Leo XIV's story is not just inspiring, it's a call to action. He invites every Catholic family to recognize their vital role in the Church's future. He believes that the next saints, reformers, and even popes are being raised right now in ordinary households. If you raise your child to love the Mass, you may raise a saint. If you teach your daughter to trust God above all, she may one day convert nations. The Church's revival begins at your dinner table. Sacred traditions passed through generations. Pope Leo XIV often recounts how the liturgical seasons were vividly lived in his home. Advent meant lighting the wreath in prayerful silence each evening. Lent came with acts of fasting, almsgiving, and early morning Massachusetts Easter Sunday was always a celebration with songs, food, and joy rooted in the resurrection, not just a holiday, but a lived experience of salvation. His family observed the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe with reverence and Mexican heritage pride, blending faith and culture in ways that inspired his later emphasis on enculturated evangelization, the idea that the gospel can take root and blossom within every authentic cultural expression. In his own words, "My grandmother didn't study theology, but she taught me more about the mystical body of Christ through her suffering, her joy, and her love of the saints than any university lecture ever could." The power of the hidden church at home. One of the most striking aspects of Pope Leo XIV'S leadership is his emphasis on the domestic church. In a world increasingly driven by institutions, technology, and global headlines, he reminds us that the holiest revolutions start at home, in living rooms where families open the Bible, in kitchens where grace is said before meals, and in bedrooms where children are taught to say, "Jesus, I trust in you." His speeches regularly underscore that his deepest formation came not from ecclesiastical privilege or Vatican prestige, but from his parents' loving discipline, family devotions, and the witness of older relatives who taught virtue by example. In his 2024 World Meeting of Families address, he proclaimed, "The Church's future does not depend on perfect programs or polished platforms. It depends on fathers who lead in faith, mothers who nurture with love, and children raised to know that holiness is possible in ordinary life." Impact on global Catholic identity. As the first American Pope, Leo XIV represents a monumental shift in the Catholic worldview. He is not only geographically distant from Rome, but symbolically represents the diverse, growing Catholic population in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. His family story has resonated with millions of believers who see their own immigrant or working-class stories reflected in his. In Africa, his story inspires seminarians who rise from poverty but dream of the priesthood. In Asia, his devotion to family resonates with Confucian values of honor and duty. In Latin America, his story echoes the Marian spirituality and vibrant community life found in pueblos and cities alike. In North America, he is a reminder that the Church belongs to the people, not to the powerful. His humble beginnings have made him approachable and beloved, and his leadership is shaped by the memory of real suffering and real hope. Pope Leo XIV's vision, a church built on family foundations. With every step he takes, Pope Leo XIV calls the Church to return to its roots, not to be smaller or less global, but to be more personal, more family-centered, and more Eucharistic. His papal motto, Ex Familia, Pro Mundi, from the family, for the world, speaks volumes. He believes that evangelization starts with example, and that Catholic parents must be the primary catechists of their children. He's often stated, "Before you ask your children to love the Church, show them that the Church loves them." Through you. 5 ways Pope Leo XIV's family has shaped his papacy. 1. Simple living. He refuses lavish papal apartments, opting instead for modest quarters and meals. 2. Multilingual outreach. He personally speaks to global audiences in multiple languages, reflecting his family's multicultural heritage. 3. Promotion of the Rosary, inspired by his mother and grandmother's devotion. 4. Support for lay leadership. Encourages Catholic parents, grandparents, and laity to lead parish initiatives and teach the faith. 5. Digital evangelization. Knowing the value of family storytelling, he encourages sharing faith on social media, seeing it as the new village square. Final reflection. When one family gives God everything, it's tempting to look at popes as distant figures, lofty, removed, spiritual royalty. But Pope Leo XIV reminds the world that behind every spiritual leader is a real story, a real family, a real home that shaped the heart of a man into the soul of a shepherd. The Prevost family gave the church not just a pope, but a vision, a church reborn in homes, resurrected in family prayers, and strengthened in the ordinary faithfulness of daily life. "If my family had not made time for God, I would not be here," he once said. Every priest, every nun, every holy person began in a family where someone said yes to God, again and again. As we look to the future of the Church under Pope Leo XIV'S leadership, we are invited to see our own families as sacred seats of transformation. What happened in the Prevost household can happen in yours. A future saint might be sitting at your dinner table right now, waiting, watching, listening,